Thank you for watching the channel today. I really appreciate it. We talk about a lot of things in the Bible and different things. We'd love to have you join the channel and click like if you would, and it will put it out to more people. The more people that join the channel, the more people that click, they're watching it, they'll shove it out and we'll get more people. I'd like to be able to reach people for the Lord and be able to share with them. We're going to talk today about lending and loaning money. It happens in our society. Everybody has it. You'll have relatives or friends or whatever want to borrow money from time to time. And what does the Bible say about it? In Nehemiah 5:10 it says, "And likewise I, my brethren, and my servants are lending them money and gain. Please let us leave off the usury." The Lord was telling them, don't charge them interest. Usury is interest. He said, if you're going to loan money to people, don't charge them usury. You say, well, Randy, how could that be? How could a bank exist? We're not talking about banks, savings and loans, credit unions. We're talking about people. This is Christian people, family members. You're not supposed to charge interest to loan money. I know one time we were doing a building project at one of the churches I was pastoring, and one of the ladies came to me and she said, "Pastor, could I meet with you?" And she told me when, and I said, okay. I met with her, and she said, how much are you guys going to borrow? And I said, around $40,000 for this project. And this was years ago. She said, well, I'll loan it to the church and you won't have to go to a bank, and I'll only charge you God's perfect number, 7% interest. And I said, well, sister, we already arranged the financing, and it's 4.9%. And I said, so we'll just stick with the loan with the bank. And she said, well, what if I matched their rate? She goes, I'd like to get 7, but I said, no, ma'am, we'll just get it from the bank. I think that's best. And the reason I did was you never know when somebody's going to get upset. They're going to leave the church or whatever, or they try to hold it over your head. I loaned you this money and you still owe me and all that. And I know she meant good, but I also told her that the Bible says when you're loaning money, you're not supposed to charge usury. And she wasn't going to only charge usury, she's going to charge it to the church. So I said, no, that dog ain't going to hunt. We'll just go with the bank. So God don't want you charging interest to people. If you've got someone that borrows $100 from you, you don't say, well, now you owe me $125. You don't do that. So we need to realize that the Lord wants us to help poor people, not take advantage of them. God is always concerned with the poor. You find that throughout the Bible. When the rich man came to the Lord and said, what do I do to be saved? He said, well, go sell all you have and give it to the poor. Jesus didn't say, sell all you have and give it to the treasurer in my 12 disciples, or sell all you have and bring it to my mansion and give the money to me. He said, go give it to the poor, is what he told that man to do. Ezekiel 18:12 and 13 says, oppress the poor and the needy, commits robbery, does not restore a pledge, but lifts up his eyes to idols and commits to an abomination. He lends money on interest and takes increase. Will he live? ? Will he not live? He has committed all these abominations. He will surely be put to death. His blood will be on his own head. We're understanding here the Lord's saying, don't charge people interest. Don't charge them extra. Help the poor and the needy. If you're wanting to make a loan to someone and you're going to make it to them, then you ought to do it, but don't charge them for it, because the Bible teaches that we're not supposed to do that. I understand that banks, and people like that, they're in the business of loaning money. Okay, that's understandable, but you're not in the business of loaning money, neither am I. And so when we loan to someone, we shouldn't charge them interest, we shouldn't charge them usury, because the Lord don't want us to do that. But I had a lady in my church that called me and she was crying. Long story short, I went over to her house. She was sitting out front with 2 or 3 of her friends. I told her, why don't we go inside? She goes, no, what I'm going to talk about, we'll talk right in front of them. It's no problem. I said, okay. So she told me that she borrowed $250 from some loan company in town, and that they were going to take her Social Security check next month and take the money out if she didn't pay the money, and she would be delayed in getting her paycheck and all that. And I told her, I said, ma'am, I want you to understand something. I was a business manager in the car business for 24 years, and I loaned money on cars, and I did bank loans with dozens of banks. And I said, they cannot guarantee your Social Security check. They can guarantee a paycheck, but they have to go to court and get a judgment from a judge and win it. Then they have to file paperwork with the court to guarantee your wages. They cannot guarantee your Social Security. IRS can, but not some littly-piddly loan company. So she gave me the paperwork. 464% interest they charged that woman, and $39 loan fee for a $250 loan. So they started out with $289 and charged 464% interest on that. She had made a payment, it had been 3 months. So I went to the loan place, and I asked for the manager to come up. So what is this? And I said, look, when I was in St. Louis, I was a young man. There was loan sharks. You go tell one you want $20, and he'll tell you next Friday you owe me $30. If you can't pay the whole $30, then you got to give him at least $10, which is the juice, they call it, which we call interest. You still owe him $20. Next Friday, if you can't pay him the $30, you still got to give him $10. And then the next Friday, $10. And you got to give him the whole $30 to get off the hook. You give him $10 a week, that's just interest. That's the juice. You never get it paid off. Now they legalized it where you can put a contract out and charge somebody 464% interest. You talk about robbery and usury. So they were taking advantage of elderly people, poor people. That's terrible to legalize that and allow that to go on. And close to the military base, a lot of the E1s, that's a guy that just got in the military or a young lady that got in the military. They need money and they didn't have enough money. They go to these people and they take advantage of these military people. It's not right. Nobody should charge that kind of exorbitant interest. That's ridiculous. Luke chapter 6 verse 35 and 36 says, but love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Now, a good policy here is, if you're going to loan money to someone, and they say they're going to pay you back whenever, all right? If you're going to loan it to them, can you afford to lose it? Now, I know that you may not want to hear that, but that's what I've always told people. Can you afford to lose the money you're loaning them? And if the answer is no, I can't pay my bills, or no, I really need that money for this or that, then don't loan it, because you're going to be greatly disappointed. I've had so many people over the years borrow money from me and promise this, promise that, and they never paid me back. So only loan what you can afford to lose. If you can't afford to lose it, don't loan it, because you're going to be sadly hurt when you find out. It says, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will live sons of the Most High, and he himself is kind to ungrateful and evil men. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. The Lord tells us to be merciful, not to charge usury, and that if you loan and not expect to get it back. That's why I say if you can't afford to lose it, don't loan it. If you can lose that and it's not going to kill you and you can afford to do it, then give it to them, not expecting anything back. And if they say, I'll pay you in a month, I'll pay you in 2 months, just say, fine, that's all right, everything else. And if they don't pay you back, it's no loss, because you don't have to have that to pay your bills. You can afford to lose that amount, so it doesn't cause hard feelings. Hard feelings, I've seen so many people that were friends for 20 years, 40 years, and because of a $200 or $300 loan or $100 that they loaned somebody, or they didn't pay them back or whatever, they lost friendships and didn't speak to each other, and it was terrible how they treated each other over a little bitty amount of money. So what I'm telling you is, if you don't lend money, if you can't afford to lose it, and if you loan it, give it to them and don't charge them interest, and then don't expect to get paid back. If they can bring it to you and give it back to you, wonderful. That's great. If they don't, they don't. But you shouldn't put a sword of Damocles over their head and tell them, this is what's going to happen if you don't pay me back and all that. Don't do that. Christians are not supposed to do that. We're supposed to lend expecting nothing back, and we're supposed to be merciful, Be ye merciful just as your Father's merciful to you. So do not be hard on people, and don't take advantage of the poor. It's not right to take advantage of the poor. Now, I realize when you borrow money on a car or a home, they have to assess the risk. And if you're a 610 credit score, they're going to charge you more interest, and you're going to have to pay it. If they charge you, if you've got a credit score of 750 or 800, you're going to get the best rate going, the lowest rate going, because you've proven that you can pay and that you will pay, and you're going to be rewarded with a lower rate. It's always worked that way. I understand some of our government leaders trying to change that. They want to shift a lot of it over to the people that pay their bills and do things right and make them pay fees to help the other people that are irresponsible and bought what they couldn't afford. But don't buy things you cannot afford. Don't loan money that you can't afford to lose. I've had people in the church have trouble, and one of them quit the church. They get in a big heated argument because that's my rent money or that's my electric money, and you told me you pay me back in a week. A month later, he still hadn't paid them. Now they're behind in their bills, and they come to the pastor and want you to play referee. And so we got to realize the Bible says, lend, don't charge no interest, and when you lend, don't expect it back. If you have to have that money, then don't loan it. Proverbs 22:7 says, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower becomes the lender's slave. When you owe people money, you're like a slave. You owe them money. My father worked in a coal mine. My father was born in 1895, and he worked in a coal mine town where 90% of the people in the town worked for the coal mine. And the store, the general store that sold food, clothing, and all that, was owned by the mine. The houses were owned by the mine. The mine charged you rent. They paid you in script, company script, only good at the store. You ever heard that old Tennessee Ernie Ford song? You load them 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me because I can't go? I owe my soul to the company store. And that's what they did. Those miners were always in debt to the employer. It's hard to switch jobs or go somewhere when you owe your employer money and you live in their house and you get food and stuff from their store. And they took advantage of the working poor doing things like that, and that's why unions came about. That's another post some other time. But I'm just telling you that God doesn't want people treating the poor people bad. He don't want them taking advantage of the poor, and so many people take advantage of the poor. This does not mean we should never borrow money when it says the rich rule over the poor and the borrower becomes the lender to the slave. If you need to buy a home or a car, unless you are really good at saving, you make good money, it's kind of hard to buy one without taking out a loan. There's nothing wrong with that, but you should never borrow more than what you actually need. You don't borrow to buy luxury items. I don't need a boat, all right? I'd like that, not me. I don't like boats, but I'm just using as an example. Me, it would be a classic car. I don't have to have a classic pickup truck. Well, I got a classic pickup truck. Let me say a classic car, Roadrunner, all right? 69 Roadrunner. I don't need a 69 Roadrunner. That's a luxury item, all right? So I'm not going to go in debt for a 69 Roadrunner because I don't need it. It's a luxury item, you know? I'm not going to go in debt for anything that's something that just pleases me. Like some people would be a motorcycle. Some people would be jet ski. Some people would be a four-wheeler. Those are wants, they're not needs. So you should borrowing for a need, a roof over you and your family's head, and a car to get you to work is a need. Everything else is not a need. So you need to be careful because you're going to become enslaved. And in this economy we're in with this high inflation, and I'm going to tell you, I've lived a long time and I've worked a long time. I'm going to tell you something, it works in cycles. And right now, the employees are in the driver's seat. They can choose where they want to work, what hours they want to work. But believe me, the day will come, the worm will turn. And if you aren't established somewhere and you haven't proven that you're a good worker, they're going to become very hard to get a job. Unemployment will go up, and you'll have a hard time finding a job. And people that aren't faithful to their employer and aren't good and trustworthy, they're going to wind up unemployed. So always give your employer an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. Don't take advantage of your employer. But we should realize we still need to borrow money sometimes but it should be for important things, not for foolishness. And when people get rack up charge card debt, you might as well just take a gun and shoot your toe off. You're constantly, and that's not literally speaking, I'm talking figuratively speaking, so don't take that seriously. I meant you cannot rack up a charge card debt and put 10,000, 20,000. God, I know you ain't gonna believe this, but I've seen at least a dozen people that owed over 100,000 on charge cards. That's unsecured debt, and they can raise your rate anytime they want. They can change it and everything else. So you need to be careful about that. That's a different post too. We're talking about loaning money and lending money. A loan can be handled properly if you do it right. The borrower must realize that this loan needs to be repaid. If you go to a bank and borrow, credit union, whatever, you've got to pay the money back. You got to pay interest. But when it comes to Christian loaning to someone else, especially poor people, you do not charge them interest, and you don't expect the money back. And if you really need it and have to have it, then you shouldn't loan it, because there are people that will disappoint you and they will not pay you back. I've had it happen to me many times in the past, and so I finally studied on this, and I finally went to the policy. I told my wife, if we can afford to loan someone some money, we'll do it, and we won't expect it back. If they pay it back, it's just a bonus. We're not going to charge them interest. We're not going to give them any kind of date. But if we can't afford to give this and just be gone, then we're not going to loan money. And so that's the way we've done it, and we've done all right on it. Proverbs 11 and 15, the last verse I'm going to give you. He who is a guarantor for a stranger will surely suffer for it, but he who hates being a guarantor is secure. Now let me tell you, this is talking about co-signing a loan. If you're going to co-sign a loan with somebody, I heard this at least 1,000 times when I was making all the car loans. Well, I'm just signing it so you can get the car. I said, no, sir, let me tell you how this works. When you sign that loan, and if he doesn't pay, they're going to make you pay. He said, oh, no, I'm not paying for it. I'm just signing it so you can get it. I understand. Let me tell you this again. I got a form here. You're going to have to sign it. This is the essence of it, and I'll read it to you if you like, but I want you to read it yourself. But I'm giving you the boiled down version of this paragraph here. The boiled down version is, if he doesn't pay, they're not going to go after him. They're going to come after you. You're the co-signer. They're going to come, and if you don't pay, they'll garnish your wages. And I said, the way it happens in the state of Missouri is, if you don't pay the loan and they repossess the car, you have 10 days to square up with the bank. If you don't do it, they take it to an auction, they sell it to the highest bidder. If they got $6,000 out of the car and you owe 12, and then the repo was $450 to repo it, they owe the repo man, and they had to clean the car for $125. Guess what? You're going to owe $6,000 plus the repo, $64.50 plus another $125 cleaning, $65.75. I'm doing it off the top of my head. I hope I'm right. And you owe them the money, and then if you don't pay within 30 days, then they're going to garnish your wages. Oh, then I'm not signing a loan. I would just sign it so my son could get the car. Well, you need to understand what a co-signer is. Co-signer is, if he doesn't pay, you're going to. Well, I'm not signing. Then the boy get mad at me and curse at me and all that. Well, he's ready to get his car. He's got everything. We got all the paperwork done. And he took the credit app home to his dad. First time I've seen him, and when I told him what a co-signer is, he bails. He don't want nothing to do with it. I've had people do that for family members and friends, and I said, well, I work with him. We work together. I said, okay. And I tell him, I don't know what his name was, say Billy Bob. I'd say, Billy Bob, here's the deal. If Peggy Sue here doesn't pay you, doesn't pay the loan, they're going to come after you. Oh, no, she told me I just signed the loan, she could get the car. I go, what do you think you're signing? And he goes, well, for her to get the car. I said, well, yeah, she gets the car, but what it means is, if she doesn't make the payments, they're going to come after you, and you're going to have to pay. And he goes, oh, I can't do that. I can't take your car loan on. Then she got mad at me, and I said, I'm sorry, but here's the form he's got to sign. That's basically what it says. So what I'm telling you folks is, in wrapping this up is, if you're going to loan money, loan it to people that are poor, middle class, people that can just get by. If you're going to loan them money, it has to be an amount of money you can afford to lose. The Bible says to lend expecting nothing back. So you don't expect it back. If you can afford to lose that and you don't expect it back, you're not going to be disappointed. You don't charge them interest if you loan them money. You give it to them and you don't charge them any interest, because the Bible speaks against that. And I don't want to see anyone taking care of the poor, taking advantage of the poor and taking advantage of the needy who really need something, and we don't need to take advantage of them. I hope this helps you. I hope you get something out of it. But when you're lending money, be very careful. Read these scriptures I gave you, see what you think about them. But I've found that this, over the years I was pastoring and preaching, all these years, that this was the best policy to tell people. The Bible says don't charge them interest, don't expect it back. If you can't afford to lose it, don't loan it. If you do that, you're going to be good to go. But do not take advantage of the poor. God bless you, and thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate it.